Are you able to talk versus look at those emails? It'd be fun if you have a reading version.
Right. Yeah, invite us.
They can do it with James.
Very good.
I told them they had to make us fried plantains.
What did they say to that?
They said, yeah, because they do it all the time. They're really nice. They're just- And just come up with it.
All right. You're in time.
Oh. We didn't have anybody back. Good. Oh, goodies. Blueberry.
Able to film all of that. James.
Yeah, everybody. Everybody. I'll see.
So I can ask him about this motion.
Everything. Yeah, everybody. Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic.
I want to know if Gabe can hear me.
I can hear.
So I didn't realize that I knew your mother. Your mother's Ann.
Was that your mother is Anne? Is that a question?
Your mother is Ann?
Yes.
Yes. I didn't know that.
Okay, yep.
Well,
Small
she's
world.
off.
Yeah, yeah.
Folks, let's get started. Apologies for the delay. I didn't realize the media cabinet was going to be locked. So I had, this idea to get here and get everything set up on time, but that didn't work. So call to order at 6:00. And the floor is open. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Right, hearing none, then the next item is approving the minutes from the last meeting. Anybody have any comments, corrections? Anybody like to make a motion?
I want to approve the minutes. Is that the right language?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry, what was that?
I was just busting. I said, what if I don't approve them?
Then you vote no when you take the vote. Okay.
Just because.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, a second? Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, minutes are approved. Next item is public comment. And I don't see anybody who's, more public than the rest of us. Then let's move on to Hayden. The floor is yours for updates from TPL. And you're still on mute.
There we go. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my screen so I can see everything here, all my notes. Bear with me here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the environmental issues. We heard from Stone that they got the soil sample results back from the lab. It took longer than expected, but the contamination for both the community forest property as well as the affordable house site is kind of what we expected in terms of contamination on both sites. The area around the telephone pole was around a 10-foot by 10-foot area. They're ballparking the cleanup to be around probably $25,000. But they still need to look at budget numbers to be able to refine that value. But less, it looks like it's going to be less than worst case scenario, which we were afraid of. So, and then in terms of the affordable house site, it sounds like the contamination was primarily focused around the roadway and where the practice burn took place of the mobile home. So we are working with Stone. Really, it's primarily Stone Environmental and the Vermont DEC Brownfield staff that are working to communicate with the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, who have funding available to Vermont DEC to essentially do small scale cleanups, which is kind of what we're dealing with on the community forest property. They have a pot of funding available to do essentially topsoil removal around where this telephone pole site would be. But the EPA funding does come with some additional strings attached. So essentially what Stone and DEC are doing are trying to make a case that this is such a small cleanup on a property that's going to be owned by the local municipality that some of these additional requirements with the funding aren't completely necessary here and seem a little overly burdensome. So we're looking to try to get these waived, these requirements waived, so we can move forward with the EPA money that goes through the state. The state would then convey that money to Stone as the primary contractor of the work, and Stone, once we secure the funding, we'd have essentially a green light to be able to schedule a closing for the community forest property. All that to say, if we're able to avoid these strings attached, I think a likely closing would take place in August. Don't hold me to that, because I've come on these calls before and issued a potential closing timeline and it's been kicked back. So my hope is that everything goes according to plan at this point. We avoid these strings attached and we can close this property in August with the actual remediation of that pole site area happening post-closing under town ownership. That's my soil update. That's kind of my quick expedited version of an update for that. Does anyone have questions on that before I move to other updates?
So just thinking back through what we talked about previously, so this one will have a soil management plan as opposed to the corrective action plan, right? Because there were no surprises. It's not a worst case scenario.
Exactly.
And at one point you said that the DEC, the state had a pot of funding, of gap funding that might be able to be used. Is that different than the EPA funding, or did I mix up my notes?
Nope, you're exactly right. So the Vermont DEC gap funding is what they called it. The source of that funding is from the federal EPA.
Okay.
So the EPA issues the money to the state of Vermont, but because it's coming from the federal agency, it comes with some additional documentation requirements.
Gotcha.
One of them is called a community relations plan, and essentially discusses the public outreach or public relations involved in conducting this cleanup. A lot of the times this involves brownfields cleanups that go from undeveloped land to developed land. So they talk about kind of how the community has provided comment on this form of development. This isn't going to be developed. So, and this is a community forest property. So we feel like that isn't all that necessary here. Another requirement is a brownfields alternative assessment or analysis. And that seems overly burdensome given that this is just a former telephone pole site. We're just removing some topsoil. So I think we have a really strong case. We just need the EPA to essentially approve or waive these so we can move forward with the soil management plan and get a letter from Vermont DEC essentially informing us that we've secured the funding available.
Beautiful.
Hey, were you done with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
The affordable housing site and the telephone site, will the affordable housing site, if that takes longer, will that delay the closing, or are they two separate entities at this point?
They're now two separate properties. We've successfully subdivided the affordable house lot, and because the cleanup of the process to get to a cleanup for the affordable house site is definitely going to take longer, they're going to close at different times. So the process for documentation on the affordable house site won't impact a potential closing for the community forest property.
Thanks.
If that's it for the soil cleanup, we should have more information on that, and that hopefully we'll have that well before the next meeting. And I can share even an update to this group by email, filling you in on how we shape up in terms of a closing timeline when we know more information from the state of Vermont on the DEC funding. In terms of trail planning, I've been helping Sinuosity over the last month or so with the permitting, trying to check all the boxes to make sure that we're not triggering any additional permits for the work. So far, we've been good. We actually contracted out a wetland delineation on Rhoda Bedell's property, which just was complete. I just got the map today, actually. And so working with Mariah on ensuring that we're not going to have to trigger any wetland permits with the work that's being done. We're also working with Tom Martin and the town zoning folks to ensure that we don't need any local zoning permits for the work that's going to be done for the school connector trail, which is going to link the Wolcott Elementary School down to the rec fields. So working with Tom to ensure that we done all our work or due diligence to ensure that we don't have to do any permitting there at the local level. In terms of parking, Sinuosity is figuring out parking layout and the car capacity based on the location of the wastewater utility. That's going to be kind of occupying a similar location in that open field, and figuring out what's possible given the wetlands in that area too. Outside of the open field area. So they're figuring out those logistics, potentially trying to maximize capacity for that kind of lower parking lot, as that's going to be the primary parking area for folks. And Kate and I have engaged with the Vorex staff at the state to amend our grant agreement. So we don't have any answers yet on, we haven't come to a decision on grant amendment timeline, but given the scope of us having to close, I think we have also a pretty good case to be able to extend the grant agreement. But we don't have any answers on that yet. I'd also like to mention that Jack, who's in the room, let us know that we secured the full $50,000 from the Nature Conservancy's Resilient and Connected Appalachians Grant Program. That's a huge extra pot of money that's coming in that's going to help cover some of these additional due diligence costs. It also helps bump up Northern River Land Trust stewardship endowment to $25,000. So really excited about that. And thanks, Jack, again, for helping get that grant award secured. And then in terms of soil remediation and other documentation that we've been working on, the stewardship plan, I know that the forest management plan is going to be discussed later on in this meeting. We'll also need to amend the select board approved stewardship plan to incorporate the soil remediation plan. I know that that wasn't incorporated at the time of drafting it. I guess it was late last year, earlier this year. So we'll have to incorporate the plan to remediate the pole site in the stewardship plan, as that's going to be taking place post-closing. It should be a really easy to plug in that information and get it approved by the select board again. It's just something that we have to take care of before closing happens. The same information probably should be plugged into the baseline documentation report, as that kind of is a changing condition on the property post-closing. Other than that, that's pretty much all my updates. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them before we switch gears.
It's not a question, but Hayden, just wanted to thank you because it sounds like you're doing a lot of different things to make this move forward. So thanks for keeping all those balls juggling in the air. So thanks.
So, Hayden, with respect to amending the stewardship plan, if we're looking at an August closing, we have one, potentially two meetings for this group between now and closing. When do you think we can get the plan? I agree, you know, I can't imagine that there's any opposition or difficulty to, you know, dropping whatever we need to into the stewardship plan, but, you know, probably want to read it before we would recommend this, that the select board approve it.
Of course,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think Stone has done a really good job documenting exactly how the remediation takes place. So we could pretty much take their recommended remediation process and plug that into the stewardship plan. And then we can, in the appropriate section, and then take some time probably during the next meeting in July to review it. And then, my opinion, then we can push it over to the select board for their reapproval of that specific section of work. And at the same time, it'd probably be smart to have them also review the forest management plan and approve that as a addendum to this document. I'm happy to work. I'm going to be working with Jack, I think, probably on some of these BDR updates as well. Happy to make sure that we get that information well ahead of the July meeting, so we are prepared to discuss the inclusion of that information into the stewardship plan and get that recommendation over to the select board following the July meeting. If that works for you guys.
Sounds good. Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of which, remind me, before we close out the meeting tonight, let's look at the calendar for the dates of the July meeting. I'm going to be traveling in early July, and possibly remove the date or adjust it. So let's come back to that. What's that, Kelly?
July 11th isn't good for us either, so
Okay. Okay.
it'll work
So-
out well.
So that, yeah, we'll have to pick that up. Okay, fantastic. Hayden, thank you. Thanks again, of course. So next item on the agenda is reviewing the forest management plan, which is a massive document, and it's hard to tell you what's new and what's changed, but there's definitely some things that have been updated since we last did a deep dive. What I think would, so here's my thinking. I had spent an hour with the plan earlier today looking at it, and a couple of minor comments. One thing we could do for this meeting is follow it up on screen, maybe if we can get the other screen working. But there are 11 stands. Each one of the stands has a paragraph, in some cases, 2 paragraphs, that describes the objectives for the stand and the activities that should take place in the next 10 years. And I think it would be good for us as a group to go through those. So, you know, we'll try to be crisp about it as we do, but I think that, you know, from a stewardship perspective, the the right thing to do to give those a pretty close read and make sure we agree with what's being recommended there. Thoughts on that process? Is everybody aligned with that?
That makes sense.
Cool.
We have the time to review it, so.
Yeah. So, let's see. We could do it like this. I could join the meeting, and share my screen. And that will potentially put it up on the big screen up there. Which then probably we all have to, maybe we could take two tables or something and, or take all our chairs up closer so we can all read it. Let's make that happen.
Gordon, I also could just pull it up and share my screen if that's easier for you.
You know, you might be able to get there first, sure.
I'm sorry. Neither do I.
Did you want to start with the plan or do you want to start with the map?
Let's start with the map.
Okay.
Hey, Gordon, it may be possible that the host needs to change the sharing permissions there locally.
Good, 2 mics.
Hayden, are you able to share?
Not at this point in time, no.
Okay,
Okay, try again. I just tweaked the settings here.
okay. Oh, we got it, all right.
Oh, we've only got one of the big screens on in front. I don't know if there's a simple trick to get the other one on.
Yeah, if only one's on, take the remote control and actually hold it right at the little light in the center on the bottom of the screen and press the power button there. Otherwise, you'll just kind of get into a where one goes off, the other comes on, and back and forth.
Now it's on and showing its default screen rather than the Zoom.
Oh, because you started, yeah, because you started the Zoom with only
Okay.
without that monitor on it. Yeah, you'd have to go out of the meeting and come back.
I'm just gonna turn it off and we're gonna make do with what we got. So,
Okay.
You want to try sharing your screen, Hayden, and hopefully it will come in on our big screen here.
Did that work?
No, it's not working up there, unfortunately.
Yeah, Gordon, I can see it where I am.
Yep.
So it may be hidden on the monitor for the computer.
Okay, so it's not on the small monitor. Let's see.
All right, so if you mouse over the Zoom icon on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Windows.
I pulled it. I got it.
Okay.
We're going to.
And just a heads up, the heavy rain could disrupt your internet connection because you're on a satellite internet. I'm in heavy rain right now up on Route 12 on Elmore side of town.
Okay. we're good right now, but we'll see what happens. Okay, cool. Guys, pull in your chairs. Come on, let's get where we can see this thing.
Kill this first.
Yeah, yeah, good idea.
Make it pop out a little bit more.
Probably gonna stand instead of sit, so there's that extra chair. See what happens. Right. Perfect. So, so the numbers are bigger than they used to be, but they're still small. Actually, I think that the map, probably if you printed it, would be, you know, a poster sized map, and so the numbers wouldn't be so small. But, so what we're talking about here is area one. I'll use the mouse pointer so folks can see it online. So area one, area two, with the pond and the jetting out to the side. Area three is all of this area. 4, 5, 6, 7 is a bunch of little pieces up here. So it's the land around the school. And some other stuff, you know, here, so here's Leon and Rhoda's house. And so this is a steep bank alongside the road, and the Gates Farm Road up here. And then again, the upper edges of this, and this is generally all pretty steep stuff up here. So that's area 7. Area 8 is this little pine stand, the plantation here in the middle. Area 9, over here, the steep slopes going down to the 15. 10, the 10 and 11, I guess 10 is the spruce fir forest, and 11 is the mixed forest around it, and also similarly over here. So I think 11 is like mixed deciduous and we'll have to read it and refresh my memory as to what the distinction is between 7 and 11. So that's the stand layout. And Hayden, probably I'll ask you to just sort of toggle back and forth between the map and the plan descriptions as we read through them.
Yeah, I can do that.
But if you can bring up the plan. And let's jump right into the section. I think it's probably about halfway through, where she starts talking about the individual stands.
Page 15.
15.
Page 15, yeah. A couple more, that's got 13. So scroll down a couple more pages. There we go, forest stand 1.
Hold on.
Yeah. Beautiful. So the 2 paragraphs that I'm thinking of, are actually 2 sections, are the last 2 sections in each one of the stands. You know, I think there's a few things, 175 acres for forest stand 1, right? The species composition, we can all read that later at leisure. Let's scroll down to those last 2 sections after the graphs. A little more. Here we go. Yes, silviculture management objectives and silviculture prescription. So I think the management objectives are probably the most important thing for us to consider and make sure that we're aligned with. And then the prescriptions flow from the objectives. So here we are. For stand 1, over time, this forest will be managed for the development of multiple age classes as a result of the history. The current stand conditions have limited structural diversity, and the forest is generally even aged. And Hayden, is this the latest version? I'm remembering that Emily had a little bit more stuff. It's 51 pages. Maybe it's just this one, first stand didn't have as much.
This is the,
612.
this is the text of the one that she sent.
Okay. Yeah, so this is right. So I guess feedback on this one, right, is aside from how to put this, one of the things is, as I read through the whole thing, a lot of it hung together. Stand one is, the top of is the slope on the Bourne parcel and up to the top of the hill. Of all, I don't want to say nondescript, but of all the stands, it's maybe it's mixed deciduous forest. It's been logged. There's nothing much for us to do other than if we want to continue to, want to open it up for recreation. I think this is definitely one of the more interesting places for recreation, for establishing trails and things.
You're talking about stand one right now?
Yeah, stand one. So, in terms of the prescription on this one, I think we might want to ask her to add a little bit more about the recreational use in this particular stand. I'm thinking about it.
Well, what about with the objective? Because she's saying that it's generally even aged. And we would want it, do we want to manage it so it's not as evenly aged?
Yeah, I think we definitely want to, manage it for uneven aged, for resilience, for species diversity, for habitat, et cetera. So, making prescriptions that move it in the direction of uneven age would make sense to do.
Will be just left in the limit 10 years, will become uneven age or will stay even aged?
Probably not, but it was just logged, 3-4 years ago, so there's really nothing you can do in the next 10 years that's gonna change it. You gotta let it grow back up. It's when you start thinking about.
So what's the management objective for an uneven aged? And we really are getting into something that might be more further ahead than.
You'd probably let it grow for much more than 10 years and then start selective harvesting.
Yeah.
Yes, unless you want to just leave it alone and become old growth.
I mean, I don't think it changes the activities to change at this point, because as Jack's pointing out, there's not much we can do with this one. Unless we want to clear cut it or turn it into something other than forest or whatever, right? But for this stand, we should probably highlight that our objectives are an uneven age forest, commensurate with recreation activities and forest resilience and so forth.
We'll leave a 10-year time span in place and just reevaluate again in 10 years.
Yeah. The way I'm reading this, and again, I'm not the forester, but this is what makes sense to me from reading it, is that the management objectives are long-term. And the prescription is what we're doing in the next 10 years. So, again, I think, point of feedback, we can get if we have a little bit more on the objectives.
So help me understand the process that we're going through right now. We're going through stand by stand.
Yep.
We just basically saying, yes, we agree with the prescriptions, with both the objectives and the prescriptions.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
basically what
our
you're saying.
opportunity to discuss it
Okay.
and if we'll give our feedback to Emily, and continue the dialogue. So, where are we going with this? Maybe it's, part of what I should, this forest management plan essentially becomes part of our stewardship plan, which we need to approve and the select board should approve as well. So, as a stewardship committee, it's incumbent on us to make sure that the details that are within this plan are things that we're signing off on. We are the stewards, and this becomes part of our plan.
So basically, we're saying for stand one, we agree with the objectives and the prescriptions. Is that,
I'm
Is that kind of what we're
saying that
doing?
that we want to augment what's written here as the objectives to, that we should report it, that we want it to be managed for uneven, an uneven age stands and mention more about the recreation. Some of the other ones say more about the recreation opportunities and other things. So I'd like to see this one, fleshed out a little bit more.
What part of the Bourne tract are we thinking will growth?
Stand three,
Stand three, okay.
yeah, so we'll come to that.
I think we were thinking old growth would be nice. Either side of the cliff area,
Yeah, stand, it's in stand three.
it's relatively inaccessible.
Would it be beneficial for me to both show the plan, like split my screen and show both the plan and the map, and at least see what that view looks like?
Sure.
Yeah,
let's take a look.
Okay.
You know, the other thing, the stand one is really beautiful. And I think one of the goals should be to look at the potential for a trail so that people could actually, travel to this area just to see it. It runs more or less parallel to the river, so it's noisy. Route 15, you can hear a lot of noise there. There are lots of other places where it's quiet.
Which one's stand?
Stand one is.
Stand one
is part of up here, and it's 150 acres, right, which is only a small part of our forest, but it's still a big chunk of land. And one of the things that's interesting, again, just from reporting, hopefully the screen share comes on recorded, right? So it's all of this area here. And so Emily, of course, as a forester, she's identifying that this forest stands according to the soils and the vegetation, which is not 100% consistent with the topography and the other things that we might want to be doing on the property. So not to say that the forest management plan has to capture all of that stuff, but since it does, and I think it's worth thinking about that the silviculture recommendations are for stand one, they're the same thing for these really steep north facing slopes down here as they are for the ledgy, flatter, but south facing slopes and kind of the wetland areas, all the vernal pools that we got to are pretty much all within stand one. So, it's a varied terrain in a lot of ways, but the forest is consistent across all of it. And in my, here's an adjacent thing that came up on my radar, actually. I'm just gonna call it out on a separate topic, but it's here. So there's I forget Adrian's name. The gentleman at Sterling that runs a class for Sterling students and high school students. There's a high school student at Craftsbury Academy who is Wolcott, Grayson McNaughton, is taking that class, and the class is specifically on trail design. So Grayson's doing his class project on potential trail design for the town forest. I talked to him about it last night. It's a school project is not certain whether it's going to turn into something that, he's going to hand in a paper for a school project. Is that paper going to turn into, trail plans that we want to use? Who knows? We'll find that out yet. He's glad we know about it, but he's not ready to come and present the whole thing to us yet. So, but I directed him towards the possibility of making a trail that comes up from the where we are here at the town offices, and heads out to the pond out here. I think the terrain is awesome to hike through, and it would be a fantastic trail. So, and that goes right through stand one.
So we need to plug in the recreational aspect into this document.
Yeah, I think so. She mentions it in some other places and, you know, so again, it just seems like the stand one objectives are a little lighter than, some of the other stands. So, rather than belabor it, so move on to stand two, anybody else want to talk about this one? Hayden, let's scroll down to these last two sections and stand two. Take a look. So stand two, this one is the area out by the pond and the dam. And honestly, it's interesting, I'm not really sure why she would separate the two of these from a forestry perspective. Possibly that they've been managed a little bit differently because the stand two was not logged in this last round, but seems to have been logged more recently. You know, it was relatively recently, it still seems to be growing. So here she says, although it's currently even age, going forward will be managed for development of multiple age classes, increasing structural diversity, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess that's that's the sentence I was looking for to see in the stand one objective. And then the prescriptions are, I guess, consistent with that. Hey, does this paragraph go on to the next page?
It does, yes.
Yeah, okay. So this one seems fine to me as it stands, as it's written. And again, I don't want to be the arbiter here. I'm just offering my
Yeah,
opinion.
she added the language we requested about management of the.
Yeah. So yeah, any other comments on this one? Cool. Let's go on to stand three. Stand three is the one that's really interesting, actually, from my perspective. So, and once you get this guy. Actually, pause here for a second to stand description. Atop a cliff is a small area of uncommon red spruce heath rocky ridge. Overstory dominated by densely growing red spruce, et cetera, et cetera. Interesting, this area has deep organic soils, 2 feet deep, depth normally associated with wetlands. That caught my eye. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry, can you keep scrolling, Hayden? So yeah, here she gets you know, we have a fuller set of objectives and prescriptions. And the thing for me about this is what I'd like to discuss, and a couple of things about it. One thing is, in our last meeting, we talked about the fact that we like the idea of making this area, reserving this area for old growth, but especially this ridge top right along here is remote and really difficult to access, coming in from any direction. Also, so I talked to Emily and asked if she had any information about the adjoining landowners over here. She was able to share the forest management plan with me. And I've tried several times. I've left several messages on their telephone number that I found in the management plan, but have not gotten any callback from them. So, you know, maybe that they just don't check voicemail on that line, or they go see me. So, I'll sort of periodically keep trying and look for other avenues to connect, but so far unsuccessful.
Gordon, do you know the date of their management plan?
It's I want to say 2019.
Okay. I was going to say that typically in circumstances where we're looking to engage with an adjacent landowner, our friend, the county forester, will typically help make an introduction or explore their interest in also protecting their land. So Emily could also act as a bridge to start that conversation.
Yeah. I talked to Emily about it, and she said that, she had walked the land, she had, I think she corresponded, or she sent them a letter, and got no response either. So, that's as far as it got for that avenue. The other thing that I'm thinking about is maybe their own forester, Fran, I can't think of Fran's last name, but I've seen Fran's name on many forest management plans. That I've looked at. I think she did the one for the Bourne parcel, the original one for the Bourne parcel. And so. So I'm not giving up, but so far it's not looking, it's not making progress. The thing about stand 3 is that the temporary acidic cliff is basically right here under my mouse pointer right now. It's fairly dramatic when you get there. This part back here, much closer to town, is reasonably accessible and interesting to walk through. And also, like, you know, a lot of this is gorgeous places to be. It's quiet, the nature of the topography is such that you go over the top of the hill and down into this dell, and it's magic and quiet. You know, the road noise, it just disappears. It's a beautiful place. And so where Emily is talking about important to ensure that human disturbance is kept to a minimum by closing any existing trails and routing any new trails away from the most sensitive areas. There are trails that we need to close. There's a trail that goes on the top of the cliff itself. And it's, you know, kind of an attractive place for people to go. I think we might have to work a little bit to or monitor it if we really want to discourage people. But the trail, there's an established trail, but it doesn't seem to have a whole lot of use. You know, when I walked on it last fall, we walked on it in the spring, I didn't see signs of you know, ongoing use at either time. So that's there, but I question whether we want to, you know, keep human, so let's say this, human disturbance is one thing, human presence. I'm reluctant to say that we should be trying to shut people out of the whole area of the stand tree.
Maybe like a guided type of excursion with a naturalist or somebody that can explain the sensitive features, that kind of thing. I don't know.
Or I would think, you know, more, you know, stepping up the side, like putting trails, having defined trails and some signage about the sensitivity of the area, asking people to stay on the trails, something like that. So, you know, I think it's something that we can approach. There's a lot of other places to build trails for people to go hiking. I don't think this is necessarily a today problem that we need to think about, you know, putting the trails in there. But on the other hand, I don't want to put something into the management plan that says we're going to keep people out of this whole area. That's a thing right from the beginning.
Do we have a budget, like fencing, razor wire, guard dogs?
I think we could hire you. You want to make some dummies, like put them, you know, people sitting in chairs and.
We're trying that, it's kind of, it works during purchasing, or hunting season.
I mean, razor wire would certainly be a human disturbance, so I don't think that's I don't think that's an option.
I think if we don't give people a trail in the sense through sensitive areas that they're gonna go, people who want to see it are gonna go there anyway. And they're gonna blaze their own trails.
Yeah.
So I think we benefit by keeping people, you know, routes around the most sensitive areas as suggested, but not necessarily away from the most, for all the aesthetic features of the stand. I think that that they can coexist. I do think if we can preserve as much of a large block of, you know, rarely visited wilderness, she was saying, you know, she was just picking numbers out of the sky, I may or may not have any of them value, but she was saying like 25 or 50 acres. This whole section is 71 acres. So I mean, we probably have some 50 acres that's sort of spare, but I think like a trailer or two going through it is, you know, important in terms of as an educational tool, but also as a, you know, we can direct them around the large patch. That will serve us well.
We're gonna have marquees and kind of each, at the trailhead, right?
Mhm.
So we can have on there a map and with labeled sensitive areas and an explanation why we want to keep of limited human activities. You know, to be an education.
And subtle signage as you enter the area, sensitive area, please stay on trail.
Yeah.
Is probably important.
Just like they do on the top of Mount Mansfield.
Right.
Stuff like that. I mean, the type of trails we put there, will have some impact on who goes there and how they're treated. You know, if the trails in that area are rustic and potentially difficult to challenging, for people to hike. I think it's in keeping with the character of the space, right? Like that's an optimal place to go for a sense of solitude. And again, I wouldn't want to lock people out of it. Or make them, you know, leave poaching as their only option for getting there. But at the same time, I want to maybe we wordsmith the sentence to, say instead, you know, I guess human disturbance is kept to a minimum. Is good, but to say that, you know, something else about how we run the trails through there. And again, you know, my thinking about this is that, this section is a great place to visit. And, this section over here, also in stand 3, is kind of an interesting place to visit. It's a little hard to get to, you know, it's really steep on this side. So you probably access it from here. This whole thing, you know, stand 4, much less so in terms of it being an interesting place to visit. From my, you know, my perspective, walking through it a few times. The stuff at the top of stand 1, I call it stand 1, is interesting. It's up and down terrain, there's lots of ledges, vernal pools. You know, expedition took us through some really cool stuff. And so while stand 3 has a sensitive area, it's also a very cool place to be. So that's my comments. So any other thoughts? Well, let's
I want to show off, you know, when casual visitor comes to the forest, to get just a sample of different flavors of earth.
Cool. Hayden, let's go on to stand 4. So this is kind of a midsection. It's a south-facing slope. This area has been logged pretty heavily in recent times. You see it when you go walking around through there. And over time, this forest will be managed to develop as multi-aged. Future management should strive to perpetuate longwood species such as sugar maple, yellow birch, and red spruce. That sounds 100% right on to me. No silviculture treatment recommended at this time. Again, it's been hit pretty recently, so that seems right on. Legacy trees could be selected and marked with aluminum tags to reflect they would be retained in perpetuity. you know, I think similar recommendations that she's making in stand 4, I'd like to see them in stand 1 and stand 2 also. Any other comments? Hayden, let's scroll on. So now stand 5, this is all of woodlands around the fields on the western Bedell parcel. And the hillside and the immediate stream banks of Whitcomb Brook. We basically, when we did a hike, or maybe a year ago, Dave, when you led us on a hike through trails you'd marked up in that area, and it was pretty much all through stand 5. And so this is great recreational country as well. She mentions that a single track trail is going to be developed in the eastern portion of the stand on the open around the open field. The original plan that Sinuosity had put forward had actually had a trail going up the hill in stand 5, and I think that eventually that would be great to have as well. I don't think they're going to get to it, depending on how much how the Borac money goes. But I don't think that's going to be part of Sinuosity's initial build. But you know, I think we should. I hope we're open to having a trail that actually runs all the way up to the top of the hill up there, and makes it guides people around to the places. Here she talks about around the trail, the work would be limited to cutting of sapling-sized stems in the trail corridor and associated sightlines. Trees posing a hazard could also be removed. Light touch strategy will allow for carbon sequestration and storage to continue. So again, I think this is. I'm happy with this. Right, then let's move on. That was stand 5. Now we come to stand 6. Composition is northern hardwood, and this is on kind of the north facing slope, you know, more gentle slope, top of the hill really, but it's sloping down towards the north. And one of the things you'll notice if you walk around through a lot of that land is the soil seems really thin and wet. It's not really a very fun place to go. Especially relative to all the rest of it. This would be a place, I mean, old growth, you know, this, for wildlife habitat and other things, I'd have to defer to experts, but this is also, you know, this is way out in the middle of the woods. This is not adjacent to fields, particularly, I mean, the deer obviously can go up and down the hill from the fields, get up into this area, but to me, this feels like a place that, you know, is easy to leave alone because there's not a lot of reason to go out there. You know, if we were looking to harvest timber or something like that, there's timber harvesting happening on the parcels that are adjacent. This might be a place that we would consider as having limited aesthetic impact ever for timber harvesting. Access to it would have to come across the adjacent parcels probably. And, you know, and I don't know what, so I'm rambling at this point. Emily says that opportunities exist to improve the stand's resilience through activities that strive to establish a diversity of species and maintain and manage for a range of age classes. Again, I like what she says here. I would almost want to see more of that language in the prescriptions for stands 1 and stand 2.
You know, it's one of those areas that could really benefit from about 5 or 6 habitat cuts. 200 yards long, and about 75 feet wide that run along the Elmore boundary line. You know, this would create a natural corridor for larger wildlife to travel and to eat as they moved.
Mhm.
And it's not particularly beautiful. It leads to not a lot of new browse and new growth. But it gives the wildlife, other than, you know, birds, something to eat. And I think you could put those habitat cuts up through there. And it really wouldn't bother anybody. You know, tonight it's a wonderful place to put them.
Makes sense, and it would contribute to the uneven age growth, you know, the uneven age composition of the forest. You know, seems consistent. And she even says, this could be accomplished by creating opens in the forest canopy, and removing competing trees around the healthiest trees. So, you know, this is maybe a place to highlight forest management practices for specifically for diversity and other you know, wildlife what do you call it, feeding sorry. Yeah, the patch cuts, you know, I mean, I'll stay so. They're not accessible by vocabulary at the moment. So, basically what the consensus I'm seeing from nodding heads around the room is more or less agreement with this, and maybe we augment it a little bit with those, you know, discussion of those particular ideas. Okay, cool, that's 6 out of 11.
Halfway.
Yeah,
Can you show where stand 7 is?
stand 7 is interesting. It's in multiple parts. So there's the number 7 and this sort of light purple thing here that continues across the top of Gates Farm Road. All of this upper portion of the eastern Bedell parcel and you know, up in here. And then also the number 7 is down here by the school. Like essentially it's the same forest characteristics. She's saying around the school itself. So the stand is approaching an uneven age condition. Over time, the stand will be managed to encourage tree growth in a diversity of species and size classes, focusing on best quality stems and new age classes. Uneven age management techniques such as single tree selection or group selection. Nothing to do at this time for the next 10 years. It's not critically overstocked, etc. The recreational trail network will require some vegetative maintenance. This work will be limited to the cutting of sapling sized stems, etc. To me, this seems reasonable.
I mean, that's the.
No, stay.
Where it is kind of realize this. A building,
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully this summer by Sinuosity.
hopefully that won't happen.
Yeah.
That's so goes.
Right.
One power pole.
Cool. Any other comments on stand 7? Then hey, let's scroll on to stand 8. This one's interesting. Composition of white pine 100%. White pine plantation approximately 50 years old. Previous owners carried out pruning activities. What's interesting is like this is been groomed for saw timber, essentially. Fast growing trees that you know, to make boards to build a Habitat for Humanity house or other things.
Where is stand 8? Is there?
It's tiny little bit over here.
Oh, right in there.
I mean, the recommendations would likely be to variegate and diversify
that patch anyways.
Actually, yeah, I mean, what she says is manage this plantation with the goal of producing white pine saw timber using even age management techniques. It's unusual, it kind of goes against, some of the principles that we've been talking about, but Hayden, can you scroll up just a little bit on this one? I want to see the size, not the, yeah, here we go.
That's what we
Probably above the graphs.
had white pines in it.
I think you have to scroll up past the graphs there. 2.9 acres, so roughly 3 acres out of 750 acres.
Very small.
Yeah, she's suggesting that we've managed 3 acres for the production of quality saw logs.
And it's very close to the road.
Yeah,
The access is pretty much right there.
yeah,
So you don't have to do a lot of engineering to get that. When it's right.
yeah, it'll be very visible when there's a harvest. But
It's very accessible. The original forest management plan that was developed about 3 years ago for Roder called out some work to be done. The pine plantation, the pine as they are too thick. It called for removing some of the, removing some of the stems to make room for the better trees to grow.
Mhm.
And didn't really care how they were removed or what happened to them or this or that, so that would be something that would have to be worked on.
Mhm.
But in order for that pine to really grow, it needs some work,
Mhm.
and sooner the better.
So, and Emily's statement here is no activity prescribed for this stand in the current management period. So maybe we want to revisit that. But if she, I mean, I would understand why she would, prescribe no activity, because we've generally said we don't want to manage for, for timber, but 3 acres. That's essentially been a plantation. And I think we might ask her to revisit this.
And it's really not an area that people would want to visit. It's not very pretty.
I mean, it's right by this would be devil's advocate, it's right by the parking area. But on the other hand, we're planning to have another parking area, over here, and in my view, I think we should be doing a lot of work to make these portions really accessible. Because they're beautiful places to be, and we can make them accessible.
So Dave, how old does a white pine tree need to be harvestable?
They average like a foot to probably a foot diameter. And they're 40, 50 feet high.
So that's the existing ones are 1 foot diameter, and they can grow to be 5 feet diameter, right?
I think they recommend cutting them, somewhere around 21 to 24 inch diameter.
And Emily said something, the rotation age for this stand is approximately 100 years. Or 50 years, they're 50 years old now. So we might be 50 years away from a full-on harvest. Unless it's not an exposed place for wind damage and stuff like that, so I might get a full lifespan out of it.
You would find that if they were managed for the trees to grow, the ones that are left, that you could cut them in 25 years. And they grow.
They're fast.
Yeah, if they've got some growth.
White pine likes its sunlight too, doesn't like the competition.
And if you let them grow to be really old, you can get this beautiful sort of cathedral effect too. They have this big stand in the Adirondacks, they call it cathedral pines. It's pretty amazing if you let them do their thing, and if they're stable, they're not in the wind, and they can be quite lovely and large and a really nice place to be.
Where's the parking area?
Yeah, right, basically right there.
Right there, okay.
Could be like a beautiful, cool picnic area. In the shade that's, you know,
Doesn't she talk about going in and selectively removing some of the trees?
She says, in order to maximize potential, light thinning should be employed around every 15 to 20 years to increase the amount of sunlight and growing space. Yeah. It's okay, you're suggesting that we, you know, contrary to what we were discussing a minute ago, that we might want to manage it, but manage it for specifically to have a white pine cathedral, essentially.
could be, I mean, that's a possibility and it's very accessible to the public and. You know, people said they don't really care about the timber aspect, they want more of the recreational aspect and. Enjoy the beauty of the forest, so maybe that's a possibility for that stand.
It's, you know, certainly we're what we decide now, we could come to a different decision in 10 to 15 years when the time comes. In either case, I think we'd want to, you know, we might want to be looking at thinning, you know, and if the purpose is to grow big
Either way,
trees.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
You know, along Kate's lines, it's near the parking area.
Mhm.
People get out of their cars. It's one of the first areas they see. And you know how people react when they've seen a forest that's been harvested? I mean, certain part of the population is like, oh my God, just
yeah,
everything's been destroyed, you know. It would be unfortunate to kind of have that reaction
it's a first impression.
as opposed to a cathedral with massive, you know, pines in there. Just a thought.
if you
It could
walk,
be it could be a really interesting. Can you everyone hear me?
yeah.
Oh, great. Thinking about what you guys just mentioned about this stand, it could be an opportunity where, as recommended by Emily, you do some trimming of the sub canopy trees, but then mark the larger primary canopy trees as legacy trees. That's what Ethan Tapper was doing on the Catamount Community Forest, and it actually provides fantastic educational opportunities for the public who aren't foresters or maybe not specialists in understanding how to do ecological forest management, but a potential to mark these primary trees for older growth or legacy growth while also doing thinning to allow the next generation of trees to grow in the understory, get some more light in there. So you could kind of get a little best of both worlds situation while also educating people on why we're doing it.
If you walk from
I'd
that
also
park-
mention that we could pull up the trail map. I think the trail map's embedded in here. You might want to see how close some of these proposed trails are with this stand.
Yeah, if you've got that handy, let's take a look. I don't know.
It's in the,
Oh, cool.
towards the beginning, page 10.
Page 10. So the trails don't go through your stand 8.
It looks like it voids it actually.
Yeah. There's actually a physical boundary between the existing road, which is to be a trail that goes from the parking lot up through there. That little forest, you really have to hunt to find that plantation. Yeah. Well, so maybe recommendations or requests for Emily, that she revisit this to, in case there is, management that's needed in the next 10 years. It's her language seemed a little bit contradictory, so let's ask her to go back and look at stand 8, and with the objective that we want to grow big trees.
and potentially for their aesthetic value, potentially for other reasons. So that would be stand 8, cool. Stand 9 is an interesting spot. The really noisy sections of the, slope down onto the river and down onto Route 15. I think this would actually be a really cool place for more development of recreational trails, for mountain bike trails, because it does have pitch in the terrain, it does have elevation change. And, at some point, if we want to expand a trail network, that's a good place to do it for the recreation activity. Arguably, maybe animals need the cover, or maybe it's beneficial for the animals cover, but I wonder about, animal movement there with the highway, with the dam, with the breadth of the river. I don't think that's a great place for animals to get across the river. The banks of the river down below the dam are steep and rocky. So, I'm just thinking out loud about some of the considerations and things I've seen walking around there. That land is really steep. It's not, I think it would be a trick to log it. I'm sure somebody can do so. But I think also for recreation, again, it's subject to the road noise and out of the way of other things, and that would be a great place for.
Is that where the telephone pole is?
Yes. Yeah, it's in the open space there.
There's actually a road that goes from Route 15 down.
Goes up, yeah.
Yeah.
Is the affordable housing, is that little cutout?
Yeah, that,
Right?
yes.
Oh, it's that bigger one?
Yes.
Spend your candles.
It's- So here's our paragraphs. Lightweight, this manages to stand for development of multiple age classes. Current standards conditions have limited structural diversity, it's even age. Encourage the diversity of species and size classes. Continued prescription is allow the stand to grow for the management period. Planting of honeysuckle plants as soon as feasible.
It feels like it's right to inject the consideration for recreation uses in there.
Yeah. Seems, let's request that as well.
I think it would be nice to rehabilitate that old field and make it accessible to the school kids and have it one of those areas that's can be a learning spot for the kids.
There's some apple trees or fruit trees over.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short walk from school. You could take second graders out there. So, perhaps we mentioned that also as a possibility. And it is already marked as open, so that would be, part of the, it's open in the forest management plan. That's step 9. Any other comments on 9? Got 2 more.
Yeah. I just had a comment, sorry to interrupt. Just on the honeysuckle, I've been watching that closely near me. It is starting to go, it's past bloom and it is starting to go to seed. So it would be good to get those out before they go to seed and the birds spread them even more and all that. Just something to think about. Maybe sooner than later on that part of the management. And it sounds like Emily is willing to do that. Is that what that means?
Yeah, I think so. Or assist. I don't think she's volunteering to go and dig them up herself.
Yeah.
But to come along and help out with it. And you know what, I think, you know, a few of us have a good relationship with Rhoda, we can probably talk to her and just, you know, get permission to do it, even though we don't know, the land transaction hasn't occurred yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely pulling it up is better than nothing. What we learned, when Roger and I went to the coverts there, really showing a method where you treat the stems with herbicide, and it, you know, it's kind of the best way to do it. Pulling them up is definitely a great start, but down the road, foresters are really encouraging people to use herbicide, even though it's not necessarily in, you know, it's hard. There's an education component to that, I guess. But in order to actually remove some of these invasives, it is required basically, or it could take 20 years of just pulling and pulling as they just keep sprouting up. But something to think about. Just getting started though, yeah, pulling them up before they go to seed would be great, even though we don't own it, I guess. Yeah, and if we do have that relationship with Rhoda, that would be good to ask her about that. And I'd be willing to help out with that as well. So
And I think Luke has a pesticide license to apply.
right.
Okay,
He could be.
yeah, we could get him involved.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds like a Saturday project sometime. For anybody who's interested.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll reach out to Rhoda, and get that clear with her, and, probably post on the email mailing list to see who's interested to participate.
Hey, Hayden, would any preemptive removal of the honeysuckle poison the deal in any way?
I think that Rhoda would be on board with that. I'm curious where it is. I'm trying to think if that will, I'm sure it won't impact the soil remediation, but I can check with Stone Environmental on that in terms of where that's located in conjunction with the pole site, because they also have to test the soils after they do the remediation and make sure that the soils are clean. So I'll connect with them on that in terms of like where treatment would be and the location of where that is in conjunction with the pole site.
Maybe we'll hold off on the herbicide until after they're
Yes.
Let's get a clean bill of health
I think,
before we go with
you know,
the next.
Emily said you have to paint the stem, basically. It's not, you don't
Yeah.
spray it all over the place. But still, just cutting it down would be a huge,
Get started.
yeah,
I think we can try pulling some though.
yeah, for sure.
I know there's 6 or 8 of them around those, in or around those fields also.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
They're little,
help
they
with
can
that.
be pulled out.
It's like Dave said, we cut it now before it goes to seed.
Yeah,
Later
Right.
on, tree and
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
awesome now, we're really close.
you know, we just don't want to go and seed and.
Cool. Okay, well, I'll reach out to Rhoda and we'll see if we can make an expedition out of it on a weekend day sometime. And so the idea is we'll get the ones in stand 10 and up around the field, across the bridge too. Cool. Okay, hey, let's find stand 10, right? That's what we're looking at next. There we go. So this is the spruce fir forest, right? And she suggests using uneven age management techniques, convert the stand to a multi-age condition. So that implies doing some cutting eventually, but then she goes on to say, no activities prescribed in the area at this time. Allow the stand to develop for the next 10-year period. The recreational trail is going to be developed, will likely require some maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. Sapling flat stems, trees posing a hazard to trail users may also be removed.
We have an extensive trail network going through there.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna, I think there's a back and forth loop that climbs the hill.
And the soil conditions there, it's relatively dry. There's very, very little water in that spruce area, so I think trail building will be pretty easy.
Any other comments? You like this one? So let's go on to 11. She found a honeysuckle in oh yeah, okay, stand 11, that makes sense, because it's wrapping around stand 10. And here again, she says, managed for the development of multiple age classes. No activities prescribed in this planning period except remove the honeysuckle as soon as possible. Recreational trail is going to be developed, and she has a standard language around that as well. So in summary, we're suggesting that maybe we should add the language about the recreational trail in stands 1 and 2. And talking about stand 3, maybe we need to draft and wordsmith something a little bit more about, managing the human activity to direct it to the places where it's appropriate. And especially to avoid the top of the cliff area.
Do we want to comment on the open land management and the riparian area management as part of this conversation? Because it seems.
Yeah, let's do it.
Which stands?
They're not stands, it's the fields. One is the open lands, which is, I think, the fields and the riparian area. Elmore Ranch.
It's interesting, launch to be delayed to mid-July or after August 15th. Yeah, it would just seem like maybe we just do it after the 15th.
And birds.
Yeah.
Probably, so you can say.
I doubt it. They like good hay.
Sure.
Yeah, I didn't read this earlier today, so,
We're on the open land part.
yeah.
One thing that I'm not seeing here is when we were out with, I think, the biologist. She recommended creating a couple of like islands
Mhm.
of trees in the fields, just to add some diversity. I don't see.
Yeah,
She pointed out, like, here's an existing, like, there's like 1 or 2 trees in the middle that.
Yeah.
Almost.
they're kind of there already in that upper field. I don't know about the lower field.
No. I think, there should be at least a walking path that's mowed,
Mhm.
before August.
Yeah,
But the rest of it, I agree, it should be waited till after.
Mhm.
It would be nice if there was a walking path at one end of the field so that.
well, and Sinuosity's got a plan to make a loop basically around the upper one. So I think that's in good shape. The lower one is more wetland area, and I think we don't want people getting down there too much, nor do I think people want to get down there all that much. And we did talk about planting, we talked about planting for shade, right? Can we scroll down a little bit more, Hayden, in the riparian area management? Is that the end of it?
Second, third, planning could be carried out along the stream. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Reduce the
Okay.
erosion.
so she's given us a possibility to do that and kind of infill the, or not, to shade over the stream. That might be something that, if we're serious about wanting to do that, or if whether or not we have funds to do it, if, we should probably put it into our plans to say that it's one of our objectives to increase the shade on the stream for fish habitat. And this would be a good place to do it.
I think we can get grants to do it. I don't think it's going to be a cost.
Yeah, cool.
I'll talk to Jim Ryan. I think there's something we can do better.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so then let's make sure to get it into this plan. So we've got it documented and, we know that that's what our intention is. All right, so that gets us through 11 stands and a couple of other points as well. Other than that, I mean, the forest management plan, my first read through, I loved all of the preamble stuff that you've put in. There's a lot of good stuff in that. Yeah. And, with these changes that we're suggesting, I'd like to see her language in response to this feedback, but with those things, personally, I feel comfortable to adopt it and recommend to the select board to adopt it. Wonder how everybody else feels about that.
Yeah.
Well, then let's share this feedback with her and have a formal motion to adopt it at our next meeting.
I'll put in my notes and try to get to an email.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Hey, it's part of the deal.
Chat GPT could probably do something for you if you wanted that.
I think it's just stripping it out.
All right, I think that takes us to the end of our agenda.
It does, David requested that he wanted to talk about the grand opening event a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
But I know that
DJ also.
DJ is not here and he sent an email saying that he wanted to be included in many of the planning efforts. But other than that, I'm just.
Yeah, right. Well, so August is a optimistic closing date. And one thing that we've talked, some email back and forth with DJ and others, thinking about maybe October, before hunting season. It's a little hit or miss with the weather, but the possibility of having a great day in October, those days are spectacular. So I think that's kind of what we were aiming for. That's the state of the conversation at this point in terms of opening ceremonies. Hayden, the one thing that I think about in terms of the stuff is how much runway do we need to plan? Knowing that there's people from outside the community that would like to be involved. Do they need, a 4-month runway or a 2-month runway, or do you have any sense of that?
That's a great question. I know that donors, U.S. Forest Service staff, folks like that should definitely get a good amount of time heads up. I don't know how long. I've actually never been to a TPL coordinated celebration, so I'm not all too familiar in how we help organize that. But I had mentioned in an email as follow-up to DJs that we have a staff member in our Montpelier office that has helped do a few of these, and she would help be able to coordinate kind of invitations and organizing any logistics. And we also have, I think Kate had mentioned on our previous, our last month's meeting, that we have a pot of money that's available to help cover kind of celebration costs. So maybe next time you guys have a subcommittee meeting or a collection of folks on this in this committee talking about celebration planning, including that staff member would probably be a good idea.
So where my mind is going with it is if we have a closing in August, you know, and we meet once a month and everybody's got other things that they do that getting a party together, you know, with 2 months lead time or, you know, then starting now, it's
Ain't gonna happen.
Golly, you're shaking your
I'm
head.
sorry.
But having a big party in the springtime, or early summer, you know, after we own land, you know, that might be the time for a grand opening celebration kind of thing.
It'd be nice to have the crowd open too, so they can actually walk. through the
Yeah,
Bars.
it seems unlikely to have it possible by October. You know, in October, this fall would be a groundbreaking party as opposed to like a grand opening, I think. So just putting it out there, and I don't, you know, the parties are always fun. But also always stressful, so,
And the closing could very well get postponed,
true that.
so. It might be better to shoot for an April party. If you're thinking spring.
Yeah, yeah, well, you know, following winter, April will be, you know, if you go out in the woods, you can see everything. It's a good time to look for vernal pools and things like that.
Birthday in April.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, first.
Uh-huh.
There's part of it that says if there's any volunteer energy we have available, it's just clearing out brush and making trails for the season turns.
Yeah, right.
It's, you know,
Yeah, and then having a party in the springtime to might stir up energy for the summer.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm thinking out loud. I'd like to, you know, I know DJ's put some thought into it already, so I don't want to make any decisions without having him in the room to talk about it.
Gabe, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to share too?
Not really. I guess I just sort of, yeah, it seems slightly, October seems really soon for some reason. I mean, I don't know if that's terribly rational, but it just seems like a lot has to happen. So your thoughts are definitely, I'm sort of feeling what you're saying there, Gordon. DJ, yes, does seem to be a bit of, I guess, the driving force, sort of in this so far. So maybe we can run things by him. But yeah, I felt a little bit of like a little sense of relief thinking about April instead of October. But again, yeah, just thinking out loud as well.
It almost seems that if you could close in August, you could still have a party, you know, October. And it's probably the most beautiful time of the year around here.
It'll be hard to get politicians for this election.
Oh,
Well, yeah, there's that too. I mean, you know, we can have two parties. You know, we can celebrate the closing and then we can have a grand opening.
It's so lovely.
Yeah, something like that.
Because last year we went on a walk in October up on Warrenland and all the, it was so golden up there. It was really nice.
Yeah. I mean, there's no bad time to be out in these woods.
It's crazy in April, sugar, well, maybe not April, but.
Yeah.
When's town meeting?
We gotta wait till the mud dries first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The end of April's good.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well, we don't have to decide tonight, but sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it could just be my procrastination side, liking April better than October more than anything. But yeah. Let's keep talking.
Anything else we need to cover in the meeting?
Why dates?
Yeah, you want to.
Oh, yes, July date. Right.
That you're away the first few weeks.
Yep.
What's July 18th look like?
July 18th, I will be just getting back in town. How about July 25th?
We'll be gone.
You're going on the 25th.
It doesn't have to be a Thursday, it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Doesn't necessarily have to be.
We do want to get it to the select board, though, pretty quickly, right? Because we have, then we have like the soil remediation plan we have to review, and then we'll have a forest management plan we'll have to review, and we want to get those both to the select board as soon as possible, right?
Yeah, so the select board meets, I think, the first and third Wednesday of the month. So they'd meet on
So the
July
7th
3rd and
August.
17th. Beyond that, they'd then meet on the 7th of August, which would be cutting it tight if we ended up being able to move forward with an August closing. So they'd have to do some form of special meeting to approve the plans.
When do you leave in town, Gordon?
I'm leaving on the 9th and back on the 18th.
Do we want to try to meet on the 3rd of July?
What are you saying?
July 3rd, it seems like.
No way.
So that's
So
a
maybe
holiday.
for July 4th.
Tuesday.
Yeah, the 3rd is a select board meeting also. Tuesday the 2nd is a possibility.
We'd also have to confirm that Emily's able to turn around any edits that we're trying to send her way in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's 2 weeks from now, July 2nd.
All right, that's a little tight, final years.
I mean, you guys can meet without me. It's not absolutely critical that I'm here to run the meeting.
I mean, I personally am out of town, from the 18th until the evening of the 22nd. So I could do before the 18th or after the 22nd, any other date other than the holiday would be.
We're gone a long time, so we'll miss August's meeting too.
So are you gone on the 11th? If we kept it on the 11th, I'll.
We'll be here.
We're here.
I
We
won't
have
be.
something else going on the 11th.
Because we're not here.
Yeah, I mean,
Why not just, how about Monday the 8th?
This Monday, the 8th. Would that give Emily enough time, Monday, the 8th?
it's only 3 less days than postponing it to the 11th.
Yeah,
Um,
well, that's true. Very true. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you want to do Monday, the 8th?
Let me just confirm if I'm traveling on the 8th.
We could keep our agenda short to just those items as well.
It's time we would put it at the 8th.
So July 8th at 6.
Yes.
Okay. Too long.
I leave at 6 o'clock. I can do this.
Very
Yeah.
short.
We can have a short meeting on the 8th.
Well, it should be, all things, it should be approving the changes that we've already already talked through at this meeting.
Yeah,
And then just doing a quick look over the soil remediation plan, which really, what have we been doing now for
Yeah,
this?
right.
The experts on that.
That's right.
Right.
It's likely to be a very short meeting if we just keep it to,
Six.
yep,
you just say 6 to 7.
yeah, yeah.
No, earlier.
Let's make it 6 or 7 and, you know, standard time. Okay. And any objections? Meeting on the 8th.
That's starting at 6.
Right,
Yep.
6,
Yep.
so keep it to an hour meeting,
Yep,
and just 2 items on the agenda, and just 3 meetings.
right. And Hayden, you can just say, you know, August or not August. For closing date.
I just want to make sure they got everything they need by August.
Cool.
All right,
What else do we need? Anything? I think we're done.
adjourned.
Adjourned, okay. Meeting adjourned, adjourned by consensus. Thanks, Hayden.
So.
See y'all.
Sheila, Dave. Thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.